How do we do it? All right, excellent. So, good afternoon, everyone. Hey there. Jos was so kind to draft me for the "So why does all of this matter" talk, which this one is. So the challenge was, how do you explain to someone who has no idea of computers why what we are all doing here matters? I find that a very interesting challenge, because I don't know about you, but trying to explain this sometimes to people who have absolutely no connection to software can be difficult. So the talk is, as you see, what you don't understand will still control you. And there is something that I thought of last night, actually, as a fairly apt way of starting into the presentation.
And a left. What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11. 11.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish, not American.
What, doesn't it? 11.
Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent, right? 11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, yours then, smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass.
11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back came to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Away back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
I'm going to keep saying it until I understand Scottish, alright? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take his anywhere, you cow. Just open the doors.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because they knew they'd be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going up for nut-sitting.
You have not selected a floor.
Aye, we have! 11!
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please. Please. Suck my wally.
Maybe we should just say please.
I'm not begging that for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please. Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
Oh, fine! What did you let up tonight? Get up there! Hey, just wait for it to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
Ah, Buells, you cow! You don't let us through these doors. I'm going to come to America. I'm going to find whatever desperate actress gave you a voice, and I'm going to go in an electric chair for you.
Scotland, you bastard!
Scotland!
Scotland!
Scotland! Freedom!
Going up.
So actually, software does run our everyday world, right? Most people just never think about it or actually have any conception of what that means. Now, this one was obviously quite funny, but then some of that is not very funny. You see, So people have already managed to successfully take over pacemakers over like a distance of 30 feet sometimes, so 10 meters away. They've broken into cars remotely, so driving next to the car over Bluetooth, took over the car, and were able to actually activate gas pedals, braking, steering. So effectively, it's possible to stop a human's heart remotely without touching them, without any visible sign whatsoever. So if that isn't black magic, I don't know what is. I mean, that is why in the abstract for this talk I was talking about how this is almost like sorcery. There is an incredible amount of power in all of this. And the people who wield that power effectively are the modern day wizards or sorcerers or magicians or whatever have you. So when I say wizard, I mean people like this guy. This is Tesla, right? Tesla was a wizard, a magician of his age. Today, it is very well possible he would be a software developer. It's not actually inconceivable that he would be doing software today. So these are the people who build our society and who build control structures into society. Because this is all, I mean, if you have the power to control that lift, if you have the power to stop the heart, to steer the car, that is an incredible amount of power. And software is everywhere now. Every one of us carries software on them at all times these days. And then the question obviously becomes, when software is power, who wields it? So is it this guy? Well, actually, to some extent, you almost wish it was him. Because he looks benevolent. He actually looks like a nice guy. I mean, he looks like one of plenty of geeks I know who are genuinely nice people. So, if anything, actually, I prefer this over the actual reality of it. Because it's also not our governments that control this. I mean, our governments are, at best, like in the passenger seat of the car here. The power of software right now is wielded to the largest extent by very, very large corporations, unless you free yourself from that deliberately. You make a choice to actually control that law code, if you will, yourself. It's Lawrence Lessig, Stanford law professor, who put out this very famous quote, "Code is law," because it determines the rules by which our society functions. And in fact, I would always maintain that to some extent it is even more effective than law is, because where you can always choose to disobey law for important reasons, say you have your pregnant wife next to you driving really fast to the hospital because something is wrong. And yes, I mean, you may have to, talk to someone afterwards. The police may stop you, but then they may even escort you to the hospital to make sure you get there safely. You can ignore law for good reason, even though you may have to bear consequences for it. You can never obey code. I mean, the code will always, at all times, stick to its designed function. You have no way to argue with the code. You have no way to say, oh, but this once I really, really, really need to. I mean, if that were possible, it'd be a lot more convenient, because we've all been in the situation that we really had to do something. We were just in a place where we didn't have network access or whatever. Like, just these 5 minutes, please. But that's not how code works. Code is immutable in that sense, and it is written by people who had no idea of the situation in which you would be. And then most of it is controlled by purely economic interests from very large companies who are typically not on this continent even. There are some people who thought this was an issue. And those people started the free software community. The free software community has 4 very simple principles for its code to consider it free software, open source, whatever have you. That's the 4 freedoms. That's the freedom to use the software for any purpose, the freedom to study the software so you can understand what it does, the freedom to share it, so to pass it on to someone else, and the freedom to improve it. So when it doesn't do what you need it to do, to actually make it solve your problem. And then pass it along if you want to. Note that these are freedoms, right? They're not obligations. You don't have to use any of the software. No one can make you. You don't even have to distribute it. No one can force you to do that. These are freedoms that you can exercise, your fundamental rights as a free software citizen, if you will. If there's only one thing that you can tell someone about what is free software, I would always choose those 4 words. Because from there you can effectively and ultimately always understand the entire space of what makes an actual free software universe. I mean, everything follows from there. And then, of course, yeah, it's a classic, I know. And then, of course, there is the whole thing about the terminology. So I had this question this morning in the roundtable, so I just put it in here again. So someone asked, so what's the difference between free software and open source? And my response was a number of letters. Because ultimately, all of these terms refer to the same 4 freedoms. There's a history to these terms. There's personalities behind the history to these terms. Free software is the oldest term in this bunch. It's been used for a long time. Debian has then picked it up. Then the open source definition came along, used Debian's definition of what is free software. Some people said, oh, let's somehow find a term that brings together the difficult characters on both sides, and called it FOSS or FLOSS and whatever. But don't be mistaken, all of these ultimately are about the same thing, about software that gives you 4 freedoms. Use, study, share, improve. Whichever term you use is your personal choice. I have a preference for free software. Sometimes I use open source because in the context it makes sense. But in the end, it's all about software freedom. So it's kind of stupid that we still have to talk about this. It's 2012. It's been a while. But we still get that question. So I just thought I'd get it out there. So what are the consequences of those 4 freedoms? There's a whole bunch of social consequences that fall out of software freedom. Empowerment is one of them. This is a telecentro. It's actually a fairly old set of pictures. I took them myself in Brazil near Sao Paulo. And the telecentro program in Brazil was one of the big inspirations for actually a whole load of similar initiatives around the world, because they used free software to build centers where people who otherwise have very little to no access actually could go learn about computers, look for jobs online, write email. I don't think Facebook existed in those days, so probably not did Facebook then, but probably now, whatever they were doing. But the point was, it gave people access. It empowered them to actually participate in society and build a life for them, because otherwise they had very few opportunities to do that.